Hey, welcome back to the second hour of the current episode, and we've got a whole bunch more for you, so stick with us. Now, we've been talking about this for, how many weeks now? A lot. 3, 4, 5 weeks. But what went on in Colorado? Well, actually, I think it was episode 2 or 3, right after the state of Colorado, the state senator and the governor and all those, they decided that the people in Colorado could not be trusted with arms, that they needed to be disarmed. Well, the people in Colorado got kind of angry and upset with their elected officials. And as you know, they recalled John Morse, the president of the Colorado State Senate. Well, what they've also done is they went through the recall procedures for Colorado State Senator Angela Giron, or Giron, however you pronounce her name. They submitted the signatures, and a follow-up to the previous story. Guess what? The Colorado State, not Attorney General's office? Who certified them? Secretary of State. That's right. The Colorado Secretary of State has certified the voter signatures on the recall petition for Angela Giron. And what does that mean? Well, it means it puts her in the same position that our old buddy John Morse is in, that she has 15 days from the submission of the signatures from the certification to protest them. And from that point forward, if the protest is not accepted, she either needs to resign or they need to have a recall election. And of course, just like Mr. Morse there, the governor has to set a recall election. I believe it's within 70 days of the expiration of the challenge. Now, here's the deal. Here's a little trick right now. And this is where in the liberal Democrat back rooms in Colorado, this is what's going on right now. They're wringing their hands and they're strategizing, because if Morse and Giron, if they go ahead and resign their positions, if they voluntarily resign, what that does is it throws it over to the governor, and the governor can pick their replacement. Now, we already know that the governor in Colorado has sold out the people and that he's an elitist Democrat. So what he will probably do is put another Democrat in the position that Morse and Giron leave. But, and here's the big but, and we like big buts, and I'm going to tell you why. The big but is if they fight this and it goes to a recall election, well, that's open to anyone. And so rather than resigning and having one of the governor's puppets be put in place in their seat, if they fight this and they go to the mat and they have a complete recall election, they could end up completely losing, and a conservative or a person who actually is going to listen to the voters and represent the voters could be put in that seat. So that's what's going on in the back rooms right now in Colorado, in Denver, and in the state house and so forth. They're wringing their hands and are like, ugh. Well, on one hand, if we resign, we can let the governor put in one of his puppets in our place. But if we fight it and we lose, well, then one of those evil, wascally Republicans might get in there, and they might actually vote with a conscience, or, God help us, to the will of the people, and that would be scary. So keep a close eye on that. Freedom-loving people of the United States of America, keep a close eye on Colorado and what's going on there. And don't let these snakes slither away, because that's what they're going to try and do. They're going to try and seek cover and slither away and see what they can do to cover their backsides. Now, Michael Bain, a lot of you guys know the name Michael Bain. He is the host of a number of shows on the Outdoor Channel, Shooting Gallery and Best Defense and so forth. And he's also a good friend of mine. And I'm not just name dropping. Michael Bain is a resident of the state of Colorado. And not only that, but Michael Bain went to the state house during this debate when they were debating over whether or not to disarm the people. And he spoke at the house. He talked to representatives. He did a lot of work to try and fight against this egregious bill that they ended up just signing anyway, because that's what they wanted to do. And that's what they were going to do the whole time. And I think a lot of us knew that. But I talked to Michael on the phone while this was all going on. And he said to me, and I said, dude, what is going on in Colorado? Have they lost their minds? And he said, well, Paul, what they did is that we essentially had a perfect storm go on with the whole legalization of marijuana scheme. And this, listen to me. You listening? This should send chills up your spine as you're listening to this, because all you moderate people out there, all of you live and let live people out there, all of you libertarian guys out there, they're like, look, I don't care about pot. I don't care about dope. If you want to smoke dope, smoke dope. I don't care. It doesn't bother me. Might as well make it legal so that we can tax it or whatever. Okay, I got you. I know that you guys are out there and I know that you're listening to me. Well, this is what happened in Colorado. When they put the legalized dope thing on the ballot, what that did was it brought out a type of voter that normally, A, doesn't get out and vote, and B, leans toward Democrats. All of my libertarian friends out there, think about it like this. You put a legalized marijuana bill on the ballot and you let people come out and vote for or against it. Who do you think is going to be voting for it? Be serious now. Do you think it's conservative-minded people or do you think it's liberal-minded people? And I know you libertarians are like, no, it doesn't matter, dude. We need to get rid of this two-party system. Yeah, okay, I got you. But here's the reality of it. The reality of it is people that didn't normally get involved in politics, people who normally would not have gone and voted for state senators or state representatives and what have you, really, really wanted to vote for pot, man. It's legalize it now, dude. You gotta. Well, what they did is they went out and they went to the polls specifically to vote for pot. And while they were there, they cast their ballots for hippie liberal Democrat candidates. And so what happened is you had a perfect storm of hippie liberal Democrats sweep into office when they normally would not have been. Normally, in a sane world, we don't care what the people say. We know what's right for them, and we're going to do what we want to do, as in John Morris and Angela Gueron and a whole bunch of other people. Those people got elected. In a normal world, they would not have, and you wouldn't have this upside-down world in Colorado now. So think about that for a second. All of you, conservative people that believe in the Second Amendment, you're like, well, I believe, I'm a libertarian and I believe that people should be responsible for their own behavior, whether they do drugs or don't do drugs or what have you. And I'm with you there. And in a perfect world, that works out very well. But we're not in a perfect world. And the fact of the matter remains is when something like that occurs, that's what you get. That is what they are reaping out there in Colorado now. They're reaping what they have sown. And I'm sure a lot of conservative gun owners, pro-Second Amendment people, when this whole legalized dope thing came down the pipe, I'm betting that a lot of those people said, whatever, it's not that big of a deal. I don't do it myself. I don't care. I don't care if other people do it as long as they don't bother me, blah, blah, blah. That was their thinking. Well, they thought that, and then look what happened to them. They paid for it in the end. There is no free lunch, ladies and gentlemen, and every cause has an effect, and every effect has a cause. There's something, this is a complete, total side note, and it is not related to guns, but I felt the need to mention it anyway for all my good liberal-minded libertarian friends. This story is from smartcolorado.org. It's from and it says that according to the Colorado Department of Transportation, this is a study by the Colorado Department of Transportation, and it said that in the last year, drugged driving, that's not drunk, it's drugged. Drugged driving is on the rise. So what have we seen? Well, we've been fighting. This is the crazy thing in America is we've been fighting drunk driving. That's been the catch, phrase. That's been the thing that we're most concerned about. We've spent literally millions upon millions of dollars in the United States of anti-drunk driving campaigns, right? And I think everybody agrees with that. They're like, yeah, we understand you shouldn't drive drunk. Okay, fantastic. Well, while drunk driving is down and fatalities because of drunk driving is actually down, guess what is up? Driving. That's right. People under the influence of narcotics. People who are fatalities of traffic accidents where the driver tested positive for marijuana use has increased 26%. Wow. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. All right, moving on. We've got a story out of Bangor, Maine, and I've been to Bangor, Maine. I've been to the airport in Bangor, Maine. A lot of people that know about Bangor know that there is a large airport there and a lot of transcontinental flights going across the Atlantic. They stop and refuel in Bangor because it's way up there. And what you can do is you can shoot across the top of the Atlantic Ocean from England or Ireland or what have you, stop in Bangor, refuel, and continue on. And when I came back from the first Desert War, which as it turned out, we stopped in Bangor for a couple hours, took on fuel and what have you. So I've been there, and I've had some friends from Maine. I believe Maine is a beautiful state. But the report out of the Bangor Daily News says that police chief accidentally shoots self while cleaning gun. The exact title is Bangor police chief accidentally shoots self with new duty weapon. And you're like, what? How can that be? Well, I'll tell you what it is. It says the city's new police chief was cleaning his newly issued weapon Monday afternoon and apparently shot himself in the hand. I like how they use the term apparently. Well, how do you apparently shoot yourself? You either have a bullet pass through a portion of your body or you don't have a bullet apparently pass through your body. It's like, it's not really a hard question to answer there. Like, did a bullet enter your body? Yes or no? It's not a maybe question. Well, maybe it did. I'm not sure. Let's check. No. What happened, and you go on as you read the story, it says that the department recently adopted the .45 caliber semi-automatic Glock pistol as opposed to their Sig Sauer .45 caliber pistols, right? And that the chief was, going through the in-service training, was one of the first ones. After training, shot himself through the hand. Well, how does that happen? Well, we've examined the 4 universal safety rules before, and in order for you to put a bullet into your own body or someone else's body negligently, you have to violate one or more of those, and generally it's more than one. But what he did, and I feel relatively positive that this is what happened. I wasn't there, but what I'm going to say is this. People dig on the Glock pistol because one of the steps in disassembly is to press the trigger because that releases the spring tension and allows you to pull the slide off. And so what this guy did is he pressed the trigger, I'm sure, to relieve the slide tension, and the bullet passed through his hand. If you read the story, it says he shot himself in his hand, in his pinky finger, but the pinky finger is still attached, and it was a grazing wound, and he's going to be okay. So yay team. Okay, fantastic. But if you have a Glock pistol and you desire to disassemble it, pressing the trigger to disassemble it is not that big of a deal as long as you do it right first. Well, what's the first step in clearing a gun, a semi-automatic firearm, in order to clean it, disassemble it, whatever you want to do? Step number 1, remove the ammunition source. That would be the magazine for you guys in Rio Linda. Remove the ammunition source is step 1. Take it out, put it somewhere else. Check. Step 2, lock the action open. All right, we pull the slide back, we lock it. Step number 3, visually and physically inspect the chamber. All right, we've done that. After we have done all of those things, then and only then will we put the slide forward, point the gun in a safe direction, press the trigger, and take the slide off. Not really overly complicated. Well, what happens when you reverse the steps? When you rack the slide back, then remove the magazine, then press the trigger, and just skip the whole visually and physically inspect the chamber part. Well, what happens is you end up with one single cartridge in a gun that has no magazine. You press the trigger and it goes bam, and you're standing there with a look of surprise on your face. Don't do that. In the future, I don't want you to do that. And somebody said there's been some comments, I mean, and this is a public story, so there's been, I don't know, dozens of comments. And one of them is, well, that's because Glocks don't have safeties on them. Yes, that's exactly why, because the Glock doesn't have a manual safety lever. If it would have had a manual safety lever, this never would have happened. It just dumbfounds me that in the year 2013 that there are still keyboard commandos out there posting comments about how unsafe the Glock is because it doesn't have a manual safety lever. Neither does a Smith & Wesson Model 66, and we carried them for 50 years, so get over that part. And that would be almost a valid consideration if this agency had pistols previously that had manual safety levers, like the old 4-digit Smith & Wesson autos, or, maybe a Beretta with a slide-mounted decocker or something like that. If that was their previous gun, I can almost give it to them. But it was a SIG. It was a SIG 220, a SIG Model 220 in 45 ACP. Guess what? The SIG 220 doesn't have, unless it's the the single action only 220, which I really doubt is being issued to a police department. They have a decocking lever on the side, and they have a double action trigger, but they don't have manual safeties on SIG 220s. So that really doesn't hold water. And I'm not digging on this guy. I really am not. Stuff happens, but when stuff happens, we need to examine it and say, okay, in the future, how can we prevent this from happening again? Or how could I prevent this from happening to me? Well, number one is, before you put your digit on the trigger and pull back, if you're not expecting a bullet to come out of it, if you're not expecting it to go bang, you need to make darn sure that you've looked into the chamber, put your little pinky in the chamber, and that there are no cartridges of ammunition in that gun. Because if you haven't checked that, chances are good that it's probably going to go bang. And if that's not your intention, it can be an embarrassing situation. If your hand or your pinky is in front of the muzzle and it goes bang, well, guess what? The bullet's going to run into your hand and you're going to have an owie. Don't do that. Don't put your hand in front of the muzzle while you're pressing the trigger. That's generally a bad idea, and I want you guys in the future to make sure you don't do that. So lessons learned? Number one, when you point the gun at your own hand and press the trigger and it goes bang, that's not an accident. That's you being negligent. Okay? Remember, there is a difference between accident and negligence. Accident is something that could not have been prevented by any reasonable means. Negligence is you doing something that you should not have done. So keep that in mind. Next story. This next one, it comes from the mailbag, and I thought it would be a good topic to just touch on during this week's show. And the question is, about reloaded ammo or hand loads as personal defense loads. And there's been a lot of, not so much recently, but probably 10, 15 years ago, there were a lot of articles in gun magazines. We don't read gun magazines anymore, so I guess there'd be like articles on forums and in, bulletin boards, or not bulletin boards, but, your gun forums and what have you, about whether or not you should use home loaded or hand loaded reloads in your self-defense gun. Let's say you've got a Dillon press and you are very, very proud of your ability to reload ammunition, and you do a fantastic job and you know what you're doing and you don't need anybody telling you what is what. Okay, I got you. But I can guarantee you this. You've got your den or you've got your workshop and you've got your Dillon reloader, and, you are an excellent reloader. You've been reloading for 27 years and you were taught by the greatest reloaders in history how to reload. You still don't have the liability insurance that Winchester has. I can guarantee you. Unless your last name happens to be Spear or Winchester, I pretty much can guarantee, or Olin, that you don't have the liability insurance and the research and development and the testing facilities that Federal has, or Hornady, or Corbon, or Spear, or what have you. The reason that if you're going to reload fantastic. Reload all day long. If you want to hunt with reloads, go for it. If you want to shoot matches with reloads, rock on. I know guys out there that are telling me that there's no way that a factory load can come close to my hand loads, when it comes to accuracy. And dude, drive on, drive on. And if you don't win your match because your ammunition wasn't exactly the way that was supposed to be, it's no big deal. You still get to go home tonight. You're not going to jail. You're not going to the morgue. You're not going to, the hospital because your match loads didn't perform the way you wanted them to. Not a big deal. If you have a gun staged on your person or near your person, and that gun is used specifically to save your own life, to save the life of your family members, and the ammunition doesn't perform like it's supposed to, kind of a big deal. Kind of a big deal. Oh, and you're like, it doesn't matter, dude. My reloading skills are impeccable. They're unquestionable. And I've had people tell me that, like, you don't understand. I make the best reloaded hand loads in the world. Okay, I got that, dude. But here is the deal: if you have to pull the trigger on another human being, at some point in time, somebody's going to want to look at your gun. They're going to want to look at the ammunition. They're going to say, what was this? And if you're using a factory load from whomever, whether it's Winchester or Federal or Speer or Hornady or whomever, that can be replicated. That load can be replicated over and over again. If it really comes down to it, I mean, if it's more dicey than it should be, they're going to examine the exact load, the bullet weights. They're going to examine all that stuff. There's any question. And what you don't want is, if it comes down to it, this is as silly as it is, but if you used hand load ammunition and you admitted in court or in the investigation that the ammunition you used was loaded in your den or in your workshop with your Dillon loader, with this powder, with this bullet, and so forth, the prosecution may actually seize your reloading equipment and all your powder and all your primers. And you're like, no, that would never happen. Like, really? Really? Would that never happen? Wouldn't you rather be able to say to them, if it comes down to it, what load did you use? And you said, I used the Winchester SXT, or I used the Federal Hydroshock, or I used the Speer LE, whatever, or Corbon, DPX. Wouldn't you rather just refer them to them? Refer the prosecutors or the defense attorneys or whomever. Say, well, and because you can take the box and say, okay, this was lot X from Winchester, and they can run the lot, and Winchester can give them the exact specifications. This primer, this powder, this projectile was all put together on this day. Here you go. And if you'd like reams of R&D and testing and research, if you'd like that, here you go. And if you want to come after us and say that this bullet was extra deadly or this projectile was extra lethal, well, fine. I'm sure that Winchester and Hornady, that all those guys have a pretty serious amount of liability insurance. You cannot be an ammunition manufacturer and not have serious liability insurance and a serious team of attorneys. So rather than, think about it like that. If it comes down to it and they really want to get into your ammo after the shooting, they're like, oh, we're going to examine this guy's super deadly killer ammo. Wouldn't you rather they question Winchester or Hornady about it than you? Wouldn't you? I would. I would rather that, hey, if you think that it's a super killer death bullet, go talk to Corbon. Go talk to Federal. They'll have their attorneys talk to your attorneys and, drive on. When you use personally hand-loaded ammunition in your self-defense gun, you pretty much are putting yourself all alone. It's you standing out in the field. There's nobody to fall back on. It's just you. And if you are that hardcore, dude, and you have $10 million in liability insurance and you'll bet your life on your Dillon reloader, and I know I'm giving Dillon a huge commercial now, on your Hornady reloader, then rock on, dude, rock on. But let's face it. If you're going to be loading up for self-defense, we talked about this on previous episodes, you're only going to need 20, 30, 40 rounds max. Just spend the money. Spend the $30, $40, whatever it takes to buy the good quality, the high quality, self-defense ammo, load that up. And when you want to practice, you want to go to training, you want to do that, load yourself up 500, 1,000 rounds of practice ammo on your with your reloader and drive on. So that's when it comes to self-defense and reloads, I would say that it really, the pennies that you save loading your self-defense gun with reloaded ammunition is not really worth it. It's not. So just rely upon the experts. And these guys make ammo for a living, and they have for a long, long time. So I would rely on them rather than rely on myself. Now, this we haven't spent a whole lot of time talking about the AR-15 or rifles on Student of the Gun. There's no real reason behind that. It's just that we haven't. There's been since we went live, there's been so much to talk about that really there's times that I come to the microphone and I think, man, am I even going to have enough time to speak to all these issues? And hence the reason we gave you guys the new expanded version of Student of the Gun Radio. And by the way, you are welcome. But let's talk about AR-15s for a second. And let's talk about the operating mechanism. We had a question, came from the Student of the Gun mailbag. And it says, if I'm going to buy an AR-15, should I buy a piston-driven gun, or should I buy a direct gas impingement gun? And that is a good question. Now, the original AR-15, the Armalite rifle Model 15 that was designed by Gene Stoner, had what they called a direct gas impingement operating system. And this operating system has probably caused more... it's been the inspiration for more op-eds and articles, and some people think it's the best thing ever, and some people think it's the worst thing ever. I know a lot of old school guys, a lot of my Vietnam veteran buddies and so forth. I actually have a good friend who is a very, very well-known writer. And I don't think he listens to my podcast, but I'm not going to say his name anyway. But he's a very, very well-known writer. He's a Vietnam veteran. I highly respect him. He's a walking encyclopedia of firearms knowledge, literally. And when we go out to events, if an AR-15 is part of the event, he just skips it. He has no use for the AR-15 platform whatsoever. And that's fine, because based upon his experience when he was in Vietnam, when he was an officer in Vietnam, he did not see the AR-15 or the new M16 perform as he thought it should, and so he just completely ignores the AR-15 M16. But fast forward from the 70s to 2013, and what we have in the United States of America today is a greater variety of AR-style, stoner-based guns than we ever have in the whole history of the country. Right now, there are more varieties of stoner-based rifle than there ever has been. And it really is, if you pay attention to the shooting culture, it's almost amazing. I don't think you could name one firearm right now currently that has as many different configurations, styles, barrel lengths, operating systems, accessories, uses. Try and name one. Try and name a rifle or a shotgun or a pistol that is as modular, as convertible, as varied as the modern AR. There aren't. I mean, even the Thompson Center Contender pales in comparison to the modern AR rifle. And what's been going on in the last 10, 15 years or so, but really in the last 10 years, is a modification of the gas system in the AR. For those of you who aren't familiar with ARs, the direct gas impingement, when the cartridge fires, the expanding gases travel down the barrel, pushing the bullet out, and there is a small vent in the top of the barrel in what they call the gas block. And a little bit of that gas is vented up out of the top of the barrel, back through a gas tube, back directly into the action of the firearm, of the rifle itself. And that gas is what causes it to cycle rearward, grab a new cartridge, and drive on. And that is called direct gas impingement. That means that the gas itself is traveling back through the tube. The gas goes into the bolt carrier group, and it causes it to operate. Now, the big, and it works just fine, but the big problem with a direct gas impingement gun is this. What do we know about burning propellant gases? Well, they have a byproduct called carbon. And what happens is after time, 10, 20, 30, 100, 200 rounds, all that carbon being forced directly back into the bolt carrier group starts to build up. And depending on how dirty your ammunition is, certain types of ammunition burn cleaner than others. Certain types of powders burn cleaner than others. But just in general, what you have is you got a continuous feed of carbon back into these moving parts. And what do we know about carbon and moving parts? Carbon and moving parts don't go together well. It starts building up and building up and building up, and eventually it can cause the gun to malfunction, for stoppages to occur. Now, this takes time. You don't fire 5 shots and the gun goes down because of carbon buildup. That's not how it works. But people have said, well, look, I've got to be able to rely on this in a combat situation, in a battle situation, and I can't be stripping the bolt carrier down and cleaning it every time I shoot a magazine of ammo out. And I got you there. But so what they did is many different companies, all the major manufacturers of the AR-15 platform, of the AR-15 rifle in the United States, have come up with their own versions of what they call a piston system, a gas piston system. And what that essentially is you have a spring operated or a spring cushioned piston. So instead of the gas being fed directly into the bolt carrier group, causing it to cycle and move, the gas goes up, and it still goes up through the vent hole in the top of the barrel. It vents up in there, but instead of the gas being fed through a tube, the gas pushes against a piston. And the piston action pushes rearward, and it causes the bolt carrier group to, travel backwards against the spring and comes forward and all that. And that does two things. Number one, and we didn't talk about heat, but when you have hot gases, when you have burning propellant gases being pushed back onto your bolt, it heats up the bolt carrier group. You fire one, if you guys don't believe me, rapid fire 30 rounds out of your gun, open it up, pull the bolt out, and hold it in your hand. You are not going to be able to unless you're wearing gloves, because it's going to be ridiculously hot. It's going to be very, very hot, because that hot burning gas is right on top of it. It's making it go rearward. With a piston gun, you reduce the amount of heat that's being put onto the bolt carrier group. I've actually been out on ranges where the guys were doing demos, and they had select fire guns where they would rip through a full magazine, shoot it as fast as they could, open the gun up, pull the bolt carrier group out, and hand it and pass it around to guys. And you say, see, it's warm, but it's not that hot. And you say, well, big deal. Well, it is kind of a big deal when you shoot magazine after magazine after magazine after magazine in a combat situation, and you get the bolt in the bolt carrier so hot that it could affect the properties of the metal. So you've got that. You also have the fact that the gas is not – now, you're always going to have some propellant gas escaping around the action. I mean, look at your bolt action rifle. If you've got a bolt action rifle and you shoot half a dozen, 10, 15 shots through it, pull the bolt out and rub your finger over it, and you'll find carbon on it. You'll find, and you're like, well, man, the action's closed. All the gas is going out the barrel. How did that happen? Well, because, expanding gas is a tricky little thing, and it gets on everything. But your piston guns, now the thing with piston guns is generally right now in the United States, that a piston gun will drive the price of the rifle up. Now, the price could raise the price maybe $15. 20, 30, not 15, 50, 100. I've seen gas piston guns priced all the way up in the $2,000 range. Now, I know right now when you're talking pricing, it's kind of arbitrary because of the whole, the post-December gun ban scare, and we saw crazy things. We saw rifles that should have legitimately been priced at $800, priced at $2,000, and, all that lunacy that we saw during the Great Gun Scare. But as we're recording this, what I have noticed is the gun and ammo crisis has abated to a certain extent, where it's no longer so much a gun and ammo crisis. It's more of just an ammo crisis, and the guns are out there. I just went to my favorite gun shop, Cook's Gun Shop in Biloxi, Mississippi. It's the biggest one in Harrison County. I went over there and I looked, and their racks were full. And not just bolt action guns and shotguns. They had everything. They had a case full of Glocks. They had numerous AR-15s. They had some AK platform guns. The guns are back. All the manufacturers have been going 7 days a week since, September, October, November, December, all the way through. They've been cranking guns out, and all the back orders are starting to catch up now. The gun shops that put in, huge orders for guns back in October and November and December, well, they're all catching up now. And so the guns are out there. The big trick is that ammunition is still only trickling out, and 22 ammo is only trickling out. But as far as guns are concerned, is right now with the AR, there's plenty of ARs coming back available. And a good friend of mine, he pointed out, he said, Paul, what we're going to see in the next 3 to 4 months is the market's going to restabilize itself. And there will be $700 ARs available again. He said they'll be, and $70 strip lowers will be available again. They'll be out there, and you'll see you'll see a price correction too that reflects reality. Now, if you want to buy a piston gun, if you want to buy an AR-15, you're like, well, I'm convinced I have to buy a piston gun. I don't like that gas impingement thing. Okay, fantastic. You're probably going to pay, I would say, anywhere from $50 to $150 to maybe $200 more for a piston gun than a direct gas impingement gun. Now, here's the big question you need to ask yourself. Will you actually see any benefit from that? If your plan is to shoot 1 or 2 boxes of 20 rounds once a month, you will notice no difference really between a piston gun and a gas impingement gun. Dudes, save your money, just buy a gas impingement gun, clean it and lubricate it, and you'll be good to go. If or especially if you're going to shoot a long-barreled rifle, if you're going to shoot a gas impingement gun for accuracy purposes, let's say you're going to shoot long-range matches, you really aren't going to see any. And now the debate is still open. Some people will say that gas impingement guns absolutely shoot more tightly than piston guns. I don't know. I haven't shot enough of them side by side to make that comparison. What I do know is that when it comes to a fighting style carbine, a gas impingement gun, if it's a good manufacturer, now they have had some problems, but the great thing is by the time you hear the sound of my voice, most of the manufacturers have had 5 to 10 years to work the bugs out of their piston guns. So the piston guns that are available today are generally much better than the ones that were available 5 or 6 years ago. Around 2006, 2007, the piston guns were coming out and they were popular, but a lot of the manufacturers were still tweaking them, and they didn't run or operate as well as they should. Now they're operating very, very well today. Keep this in mind though. A gun is a machine. It's a machine. It has moving parts. It's made by the hands of man. It has springs and levers and all that good stuff in it. And it needs to be maintained. It needs to be cleaned. I know you guys who don't clean guns. You're like, what? I have to clean the gun? Oh, you're crazy. But put lubrication on the parts that move. If there are metal parts that are moving against other metal parts, take the time to put some lubrication on them. Do it regularly, and the gun should serve you just fine. But if you want to buy a piston gun, drive on. Know that you're going to spend a little bit more money than you would with a regular gun. But like I said, if you're not going to shoot more than 50 rounds a month, or you're going to take your gun out once or twice a year and shoot a couple hundred rounds, you're not really going to see that much benefit from owning a gas piston gun. So that's my opinion on that. Now, when it comes to using rifles, a lot of people say, well, we had to deal with this one again this week. We had some, I don't know, discontent. People were like, oh, you cannot recommend the use of a rifle for home defense. It's just reckless because of over-penetration concerns. And if you've watched the show, if you watch Student of the Gun TV, we did this on the show, and we did side-by-side comparison. And folks, it just isn't ballistic science. It might bother you to have a rifle in your hand, or you might be afraid of the noise of the rifle, and that's And, that is different than reality. Reality is if you have a 62 grain, OTM, open tip match bullet coming out of your gun at 2,900 feet per second, it is less likely to pass through a human torso and keep on going than a 230 grain bullet out of a 45 ACP that's traveling 850 feet per second. It's just ballistic science. Fat, heavy, slow-moving bullets are more likely to pass through a human torso than a fast, lightweight bullet. That's it. And a handgun bullet is never going to have the same ballistic power behind it as a rifle bullet. It's just not. Handguns are handguns. We carry them because they're convenient. They're lightweight, they're convenient, they're compact. That's why we carry them. We don't carry them because they're the greatest fight stoppers in the world. And if you don't have to worry about concealment or carrying it because you're in your own home, don't worry about that. And as far as that's concerned, we've done a lot of research. We've produced a lot of material, but if you're still in that mind frame, or you still have the guy at the gun shop that tells you, "Oh man, you don't ever use a rifle for home defense because it'll overpenetrate," blah blah blah. Well, first of all, if we're talking about what bullets will pass through interior house walls, every bullet, if it's a bullet and it's coming out of a gun, it's going to go through the bedroom wall. We've tested. Well, we've done exhaustive testing at Student of the Gun. We shot all popular handgun rounds starting from 22s, 25s, 380s, 38s, 9s, 40s, 45s, all the way up to 44s. We've shot 223. Unless it is a really super lightweight trap load, it might not pass through both sides of the wall. Everything else is going through. A 25 ACP out of a pocket pistol will go through both sides of your bedroom wall and keep on going. Unless it's reinforced with something else like concrete or hardwood, it's going through. So don't concern yourself so much with over-penetrating bedroom walls. Think about where your muzzle is pointed, what you're shooting at, and what is behind the bad guy that you're potentially going to shoot. And let's talk about that real quick. When it comes to shooting accurately, you cannot argue the physics that it is easier to shoot and put rounds on target accurately with a long gun than it is with a handgun. It's simple physics. Don't write me letters arguing that I can shoot a handgun better than I can shoot a rifle. Maybe you can, but the normal Homo sapien can shoot more accurately with a rifle, with a long gun, than they can with a handgun. And if you're worried about missing your target, you might want to put something in your hands that's going to, reduce the likelihood that you're going to miss the target, that you're actually going to hit it. So think about where your muzzle is pointed. Think about your target, what is around and beyond your target. Think about what's in front of the muzzle. All the, those universal safety things. If you're worried about over-penetration, if you're worried about walls, if you're worried about all that stuff, take a moment to apply the 4 universal safety rules. And if you follow all of those, even in the middle of a fight, you should be good to go. So don't worry so much about that. Now, let's before I let you guys go, let's go ahead and congratulate our winner. Our week 2 winner of the Crossbreed Super Tuck holster is Brian Oliver. That's right, Brian Oliver. Congratulations. And the reason Brian is a winner is because Brian took the time to go to studentofthegun.com. He signed up for our broadcast and got his name in the hat, and we picked it out of the hat. Jared gave me the wave, and he wanted me to remind you guys that depending on what email service you have, your email service may default Student of the Gun and our broadcast. It might default it into your spam folder. So I don't know what your personal security settings are on your email. You might have to go in and accept us and get us out of the spam folder or what have you. Because there have been a couple of people over the last year who we picked their names because they were subscribers. They were active subscribers. They were on our list. We picked their names as winners, and we sent them emails because we don't call you guys on the phone. We respect your privacy. I'm not going to call you at home. But I'll send you an email and say, hey, or somebody in the staff will send you an email and say, congratulations, you're this week's winner. Please confirm that, confirm the receipt of this email, and we will send you your prize, or we'll, whatever. And there have been a couple of people that didn't get their prizes. And the reason they didn't was because the Student of the Gun emails, the stuff, the e-blast, what have you, were going directly into their spam folders, and they just trashed them and they never got it. We actually had somebody like 2 weeks after we'd sent them an email said, "Oh, dude, it went into my spam folder and I just found it. And am I still eligible? You know, can I still win? What have you?" Well, if you sign up for the contest and you win, you probably want to know about it. So if you do that, check your settings just to make sure that the emails from us aren't going directly into the trash. That is, if you want to win. If you don't want to win, don't sweat it. Hey, don't forget about our good friends down there in Cocoa, Florida. Don't forget about KeltecWeapons.com. You can go on there. You can check out all the neat and cool stuff. And ladies and gentlemen, if you pay attention to Student of the Gun, we've got. Hey, Jared, should I let them know since this isn't going up till the 1st and the PR is going to be out?
Yeah, go ahead and let them know.
All right. Hey. Okay, when you hear this, you're going to be one of the first few people to find out that for season 4, now our good buddies Keltec, they sponsor the radio show, they sponsor Student of the Gun TV. And remember, we told you that in July, we're going to be back on Dish Network, channel 266. It's if you're a Dish subscriber, it's Angel 2 and the Hunt channel programming. We're going to be a part of the Hunt channel programming lineup. Now, to celebrate the new season 4, we have partnered with our friends at Keltec, and we are going to be giving away a KSG 12 shotgun. That's right. The grand prize for season 4 gun giveaway is going to be the most coveted pump action 12 gauge in the United States of America today, the KSG 12. And this is how cool my friends at Keltec are, and they should be your friends too. I was talking to them about doing this contest, and they said, well, we can't just give away one thing, because people are going to be disappointed if they didn't win. They said, well, let's do a grand prize and let's do 5 runner-ups. I said, all right, cool. What do you want to do? And he said, well, let's give them the CL43 flashlights. So if you guys, if you've been over to the Keltec website lately, what you'll know is that Keltec, I mean, they're a machine company, right? They've got lots of machines. They know how to work aluminum. And what they did here this last year is they came up with a flashlight set. They have the CL43 and the CL42. They're ridiculously bright LED flashlights. They're made of aluminum. They're high quality. And so what we're doing is we're going to do a grand prize of the KSG, but we're also going to pick 5 runner-up prizes, and each one of the runners-up are going to get a CL43 flashlight. Now, these aren't cheap lights. These are not your, I bought it at a hardware store for $5 lights. Now, what do they run, Jared? Like 100-something? 150 maybe?
Yeah, I think they're around $150. Yeah.
The CL43, I'm on their website right now. It's 420 lumens. It's ridiculously bright. So go over to KeltecWeapons.com and check them out. But so how many more reasons do you guys need to go over to studentofthegun.com? Check it out. Get your name in the hat. You could win a Crossbreed Super Tuck holster. Your name could go in the hat to win a KSG 12 shotgun for free, for nothing. How cool is that? It's because we like you that much. Now, remember, don't forget all the cool shows, the awesome firearms-related programming that you can find on the Firearms Radio Network. The Firearms Radio Network is always expanding, so check them out. And don't forget, you're a beginner once, but you should be a student for life.